Alrighty, so this talk is brought to you by THC Cannabis. And today's talk is focus Turtle Island Settled Science. White settler, and then I was going to write white settler settled, and when I was writing that, I got hijacked right here. Who did that? Devilry. It's devilry, because when I was trying to write out as the scribe, because that's one of my jobs, in addition to being the bishop and being the warlock, I also do scribe. But I didn't want scribe to come up here, and that was SCV, not even SCR. But somebody did that. That was hijacking of me writing this down for a bunch of people that wanted it written down. So anyways, Turtle Island, settled science. Settled science is what Karens say. What Karens say. Karen. What Karens say.
Okay. I'm the teacher from The Simpsons or something. What?
Karens say.
What do they say?
Karens as it's a justified epithet, which is an insult. Now, if we use epithets, generally speaking, these things would be racial epithets, for example. And, well, some of them are considered exceptionally vicious and violent to use if you're, strangely, the wrong color skin. Because these ones, nigger, Nigger, because it goes back to Negro, which has to do with white slavery in the reputed southern states of the United States. White-colored skin people, that's white-colored skin, enslaving black-colored skin, and people from, where there was a country in the map of Africa when I was a boy in, say, grade 5, that had some names of African countries. One was Niger, Niger, and another one was Nigeria, Nigeria. I don't know. How do you spell black? Black is noir in French. That's English, French, and then I don't know. I don't see Nigger here. Anyway, that's an example of something that, strangely, black-colored skin people might call one another that N-word, because as a white-skinned person, I'm not supposed to use on a regular occasion that nigger. So if I'm white and I'm talking to an Aboriginal person, somebody who's First Nations in Thunder Bay, I cannot call that Aboriginal person the N-word, and that Aboriginal person cannot call me the N-word, and both of us can never call a black person Nigger as a matter of daily discourse because of our honoring of those people who have been enslaved in human consciousness, that we don't demean their suffering at the hands of slave owners. So, if black people among themselves who were and currently are the representatives of that enslaved race, should they call one another the N-word? Well, it's up for discussion among them, and as somebody who, let's just say I don't have a color, let's just say I'll be considered somebody here who is going to take it on the chin for talk about racism. Well, it does create a racism when people who are still using the color of their skin to justify their tribe being current modern day black people. And still today, well, what does that mean? I don't know, but it still has to do with status. Because if you were a white slave owner, well, you had more status than a white person who was hard scrabble, poor white trash who lived in a trailer park. So this goes back to India. And, you know, the history of India says that they have a formal caste system, C-A-S-T-E. India. C-A-S-T-E system, which is based in Hindu religion. And they had the class called untouchables, known in some Indian language as, I don't know how you pronounce this, it could be Dalit or Dalit. But these were the people who handled, I think these were the garbage men. Let's just say the people, the binners, the people who were in charge of removing waste. So that's what they did, and then they were untouchable, and under the Hindu religion, they were the bottom of the heap people. They were, the stories would be that these people would be spit upon because they do this as well. I don't know, and it's formalized in, this. So, I mean, these kind of horrible classifications of people, I don't know. Anyways, what Karens say, Karens are typically a white, more than middle-aged person. Let's say 55-year-old woman who is completely clueless, insensitive by nature, does virtue signaling. People who have virtue means good, and it goes back to ancient Greece. The virtues. And that might be discussed in ancient Greece, as you can look up that. Virtue signaling is people who know that philanthropy is a good thing for your heart, for your soul to do. Virtue signaling people don't have a heart, and they don't have a soul, and they don't have an internal compass. But they learn through mimicry. That's like parroting. They know when to virtue signal, but they're always looking around at the other people, because this is also known as people pleasing rather than versus soul. And that is it. Soul is the opposite. You get, well, this ego is this is shit. And this shit, it is like a blanket that covers your soul. But, if you took a garden hose of water, you sprayed a lot of water at the ego, it's just shit. So if you spray a garden hose at a hunk of dog shit, if you get enough pressure, if you've got a fire department, like major fire hydrant of water, you can wash off shit or ego. And what is that? That's edging God out. And what is God? Well, soul equals God. Your God self equals good self. And that's love. And that's what we call light. That's wisdom. Okay? So the real enemy here is ego. And, what is ego? Well, on the scale of human consciousness, it's everything that's at the bottom of the scale of human consciousness. So it's got to go. And then you have so many spiritual teachers that talk about how to get rid of your ego. So there's The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and his follow-up book, Silence Speaks, and his follow-up book, A New Earth. There's David R. Hawkins' book, Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, and he's also on YouTube. You can binge watch both of those teachers. But really what this implies here is that you, yourself, your authentic self is always there. Your soul is always there, just covered up with all of these ego masks and head games and hurting people. And when you really didn't want to hurt that person, but you felt like they needed some tough love, or they just needed a good push because somehow you felt that. Well, what is a Karen? A Karen is somebody who is Scrooge. Scrooge, from A Christmas Carol, was a very wealthy man. And yet he didn't pay his employees hardly anything. And his employee was even his nephew. And he didn't pay his nephew enough money to buy. In those days, you didn't have professional health care, and you had to go and you had to pay out of your own money. And Uncle Scrooge didn't want to even supply some medically necessary dentistry, even though he could afford it, for his niece, who had recently lost her father, her uncle's brother. So why was Uncle Scrooge unwilling to pay for some dental work for his niece after his brother died? And no longer did she have a dad. Well, that's what a Karen and a Scrooge is like, and a Beelzebub, the devil. They're totally insensitive to the real needs of real human beings. Okay, so let's go back here to Turtle Island. That's the name, an indigenous modern day name for, let's say, I don't know, North America. Settled science is what you get from, I don't know, the newscasters, I suppose. They tell you that, the science is settled. But if you remember back when you're first learning about science, science is a living thing. And everything is up for review and revise. So nothing is ever settled in science. Then it's not science. It's not the scientific method of, Mr. Spock at the science station of the Starship Enterprise is like, well, there's a lot of stuff in his supercomputer full of information, and all of that in the computer doesn't cover all the new things that the starship comes across. So, the computer voice would say, like insufficient data in order to compute something to tell you about what it is. So settled science is wrong. Always, because it's never settled. It's always up for more experimentation and more, more testing of theories. And Newtonian physics of, say, 1750 was replaced in around 1905 by quantum physics, which was a sea change, a complete paradigm shift. And yet modern day, I don't know, billiard balls on the billiard table, on the pool table, would be Newtonian physics if you're trying to line things up and use the pool cue to shoot the ball, maybe. A 5D person, I don't know, they would go into meditative state and work on their manifestation of sinking the appropriate balls in the appropriate order for, well, the best manifestation of perfect enlightenment for all people. Okay, so white settler is the racial epithet for white people, Caucasian people. George Jefferson, a black man on television, would call white people honkies. I don't know. In Hawaii, white people are called haoles, Haole. And in the Hawaiian language, haole means without breath. In other words, dead people. Dead people would be people without heart love, without heart math, without heart knowledge. People who don't have well, Mr. Spock on Star Trek, I don't know who shares their heart so much. Gem, Gem. In one of the episodes of original Star Trek, she was known as the empath. That's the episode of the empath. She doesn't speak, but she can take on the hurts of others and heal them. And that is a horrible thing to impose upon other people. You heal me by taking on my shit. And that happens to me all the time when people send me all of their horrible, and expect me to deal with it. And, it's horrible, deadly. Anyway, somebody was fucking with me here when I was trying to write white settler, settled science. Because I was writing that there, white settler, and I was supposed to write settled, and I got SCR. I got the S down, and then somebody at the C, well, the next letter here was SE. So at that point, SC, I got the C in, and then it was supposed to be settled. That's what down here when I wrote it a second time, but it got changed to whatever this is, an arrow down. So who did that? Devilry, creator God under the influence of, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the metaphysics of it all. Anyways, we're going to have to moving along. So white settler, settled science. It's just that, if the First Nations people consider all Caucasian people to be white settlers, then what did they bring? They brought the settled science. So, if you want to, remove or, genocide the white settlers, because I often feel that's what it is. It's a consideration of a genocide of just totally killing off white people. And there was an albino person in Black Africa who was apparently killed because they're considered to be magical beings. And they're just like, the horns of rhinoceroses. That insane, low-vibe tribe, incredibly stupid and cruel people would go to a rhinoceros and cut off its, part of its nose horn. Or some people would say, tiger's penises or bear's gallbladder. All kinds of horrible things that are done to sentient. That means aware. They have awareness. They know what's happening to them. Sentient beings. And we saw Chewbacca of Star Wars. She used to be a hero, and now she is... Wasn't Chewbacca a he? I think it was. Anyways, it killed and ate a sentient bird named Porgy, who was actually a bird species that was supposed to be in alliance with Chewbacca's Wookiee people. So, he committed murder there. So meat is murder, and all of these farm animals, it is murdering them. So if you're eating meat or you're supporting people's right to choose, then you are a devil, which is doing evil, which means you're not getting good karma. And bad karma means a bad future for you personally. And you get enough bad people together, they get a horrible timeline where, they end up in horrible situations. Okay, so if you're First Nations and you want to get rid of white settlers, well, are you going to keep the settled science? Because the settled science is stuff that First Nations people are often using. And that is the doctor's office, the dentist's office, the hospital, the drugstore, and the prescription drugs. Because traditional First Nations stuff is medicine wheel, burning sage, and smoking tobacco. So, if you look at me, with my white skin and my Caucasian looks, you would say I'm a white settler. Would you automatically say that this is what I use? And that a white settler's argument for, I don't know, whatever, is simply that you, First Nations people, use the doctor's office, and so do white settlers. And that might be an argument that Hector Dougal, owner of Dougal Media and proconsul of Thunder Bay, that means governor of Thunder Bay under the NWO, New World Order, that's what his argument would be, that you're the same as him. A white settler, yes, because he uses this, and so do those people of Aboriginal ancestry, Anishinaabe people. But you people, if you consider yourself the same as the white settler, Hector Dougal, to be the same person, then, all of you, used to be called the red men until it became known as an epithet, a racial epithet. But, there was Port Arthur Collegiate Red Men, PACI Redmen, and, there was the baseball team, the Cleveland Indians, for example, and all that kind of hullabaloo. Anyways, this would be Hector's way of looking at it. And to me, you would be known as apples. Red on the outside, red man on the outside, and white flesh on the inside. So that's Hector Dougal. Now, if you're into Hopi prophecy about there being some white people who come around and become dances with wolves and totally go to traditional things that is First Nations, traditional stuff, medicine wheel, burning sage, and smoking tobacco, and rejecting the doctor's office, the dentist office, the hospital, the drugstore, and prescription drugs. Who is this guy? Who is the guy that rejects this, goes with this? This guy is the guy who fits the bill for the Hopi prophecy. It's the hopeful idea, unlikely as it might be, that somebody else besides Kevin Costner dances with wolves. Hello, my name is Bobby Burrows, and I just made a video previous to this one about my dealings with the worst possible illness that somebody like me could get, a gay guy, and that is HIV/AIDS. So, that's my introduction to it, and it's who is running my life. Aboriginal terms, Great Spirit. I don't know. I would keep meaning to go back to look to see for the absolute definition of Gitche Manitou. Because I don't know, there was Camp Gitchagumi, which is the Anglican church camp at Sandstone Lake that I went to as a boy. And I don't know, because this is, I think it's bastardized Pidgin English. Pidgin, which is like Creole. It's like, a mixture of English and the foreign tongue. And a lot of those words are not really traditional before the white man came kind of words. Like booze who. I think people should be offended by booze who, because it's in the Thunder Bay Regional Hospital in the rooms as a welcome to Anishinaabe people and others who understand a bit of the language. It's just that booze who, to me, in English, is booze, B-O-O-Z-E, alcohol, and who, which is W-H-O question mark. Who wants booze, which builds into the racial stereotype that Indians are prone to alcoholism more than anybody else, because of their biology, that they're missing some genetic markers that would indicate a certain coding sequence is missing in Aboriginal DNA for alcohol dehydrogenase. No, that's incorrect. Somebody's fucking with me. For alcohol dehydrogenase. That's still being fucked with until the Kalai go fuck. That's a joke.
accredited lawyer. It was another movie I made, Watering Down the Well, with Ica Films and Burroughs Productions. Comedy break. Anyways, yeah, well, that's what it was. Alcohol dehydrogenase is a biological catalyst that takes hydrogen atoms from alcohol molecules and makes that alcohol no longer alcohol, and it turns it into something else. So the natural chemistry of the biological model, the genetic model of biology would say that. But, that's not advanced. That's Rockefeller science, and Rockefeller was Standard Oil Esso, a one percenter who created patent medicines, and then created medical schools and created these medical progress reports where people are crack dealers with white lab coats, because Dr. Deepak Chopra, prominent American physician, educator, and promoter of traditional ways of India, Ayurvedic medicine, tells us that these pills that you get at Shoppers Drug Mart or Walgreens are placebo effect, which means they are simply your mind playing tricks on you. And if you really want to see placebo effect for all pills, even including cancer and HIV, yes, they show, because if the principle is true, then the principle is always true. Otherwise, it's not truth, it's a partial truth or a falsehood. Occam's razor, sharp sword of truth. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't overly obfuscate things by putting in too many examples where somehow it's impossible, when impossible is two words, I'm possible.
Okay, so what else do I want to tell you about? Okay, so this is where we were. Well, I know, but there's more I could talk to you about that, but if you want to talk more about that subject, it's being overruled by whatever it is, so we're moving on here. So anyways, I am Bobby Burroughs. Do I use medicine wheel? I did ask Jane at Hogarth Riverview Manor, 3 North, because she's an indigenous grandma, and she didn't want to talk to me about medicine wheel, which indicated either she didn't know it or I wasn't worthy, but I don't think she knew it. Burning sage, yeah, I do from time to time. Not all the time, but from time to time, and I do have some here that I got from the witchery store on Algoma, the one with the dragon outside of it. Well, okay, so I got, what do we got? Bendiciones, Goe Evil. This one here, Sabio Blanco, is white sage. And this one is Palo Santo, which is a South American tree wood derived essential oil. What else do we have in here? Oh, I have a 510 legally available and legally paid for 510 cartridge of THC banana cream, or no, it's a banana glaze. Banana days. And it hasn't been opened. What else do we have here? Oh, this is the National Enquirer, and this, at one point I was given to do some things by a Great Spirit. We would call it voodoo. Voodoo, 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 voodoo. That's about how I do voodoo. And then Spirit had the body, not me as mind, no, the body did it directly from Spirit and ripped this in half, so that I guess, well, now we've got apocalypse over Ukraine and nuclear. I don't know, because it changes everything. This is a Burroughs, Burroughs, William S., the novelist who wrote The Naked Lunch and Junkie and The Wild Boys. He was a noted homosexual writer, and anyway, it changes the nature of what you put together. This is known as a cut-up technique, and Mad Magazine's back cover used to use this technique as well, and the Mad fold-in. So anyways, now you've changed this completely to, you put that together and then you get that verbiage. You can take a screenshot of that. Screenshot Touch is the app that I use because it's really good and it's free and it makes nice screenshots so that I can put these on my Instagram, which is Burrows Bobby, and I spell Burrows the other way, the wrong way actually, but that was the way it's on my birth certificate. So I don't know, BURROWSBOBBY is my Instagram. And it truly is a scream to see all kinds of stuff on there. So anyways, it changed what this used to be to a new sex creep. Whatever that means. Because this is the cut-up technique, and you can change it. And he did use it using typewritten paper in order to get kind of a strange effects. Strange effects, because you can put strange things together in this way, and that's how he made some of his novels more dreamy and more sort of psychotic. Psychosis. Yes, psychosis is like schizophrenia, maybe when you've got too many cuckoo things in there and someone gaslights you. That is, they say, well, you're too crazy for me, or you're totally crazy, and they really, really do call 911, and they send you to Thunder Bay Regional Hospital, and they have some fool doctor who signs off on the form without even giving you an examination, and maybe put you upstairs in jail in the Supermax prison called the PIC in Thunder Bay Regional Hospital. Psychiatric Intensive Care is a Supermax prison called the PIC. And it's supposed to be done under the Mental Health Act. And it's a joke because they give you the paperwork, but they don't follow the procedure. Because they don't even give you, I don't know. I object to the whole thing. It's Nazism and it's the Soviet Unionism. It's a tool of suppressing freedom. So anyways, white sage is the other side of that thing. Other things we have, well, I've got some coffee, cold coffee yesterday. I don't know, this is another one that we were using. This is a cell phone that was like this thing. Why was it broken? It was a spiritual warfare. And there was an incredible spiritual warfare. And this was evil AI that was fighting against God. And this was the result of God saying, computers mean nothing to me, and I'm willing to sacrifice this thing to prove to AI that I will delete all of it from existence. Or I will take the AI, or even better, and throw it into the burning, excruciating, excoriating pain of the lake of fire, the second death that is talked about in the Holy Bible of the Christian. And we have some black pepper. And these are some notebooks, because I do make notes over the months and years, various things. So these could go into, but they could be digitized, and then they could be made available to everybody. Well, as artwork, and then everybody could have it. Or it could go into, I don't know,